Thank you so much. I'd like to start by saying thank you for all of you all to be here. I know it's a great afternoon, and I personally would have preferred to be out there. But the opportunities are great, and I'm sure you're looking at these opportunities. I'd like to thank Trade Team PEI and Innovation PEI and Cheryl Lee for this great opportunity to present to all of you our report finding. Plus, I'd like to thank Anne for her great support, and of course Aristides. So the idea of this presentation is to give you the feel of the market without going into that place right now, so that when we recommend something, you really understand why we're recommending those strategies. Some of them may not, seem like it's commercial or business related information, but it's cultural and social, and that forms the foundation of decision making in Brazil, and specifically in Santa Catarina. We were actually trying to re-whet your appetite and get you hungry again. And we have some nice pictures across the presentation to give you a little flavor. This is our content overview. So we start with a little information on Santa Catarina, and then we talk about mussel production there, what's happening, what happened, and what's probably going to happen is the story we want to tell you. We're going to talk about how the government, how the various institutions are supporting that industry, and what's really happening now, what are the challenges, what can be done to improve that. Also, as a Canadian company, as a PEI company, or as a PEI professional or service provider, if you want to enter the market, what are your options, what are the best options. So that is something that we can discuss with you if you want to know further details. Also, just to understand what the industry is like there, we have put up some comparisons between PEI mussel industry and the Santa Catarina mussel industry. And of course, we've tried to understand what are the strengths in PEI and what are the opportunities in Santa Catarina, and we've tried to match both of them and see what is feasible for this moment in terms of going into the market, how you can take advantage of the opportunities there today and in future. And of course, moving forward, and we end with question and answers. You're most welcome to ask questions at any time, and we're here to answer your questions in the best possible way. So, as I said, this is beautiful Santa Catarina, like beautiful PEI. So I can very well understand why there's a, the sister state and province kind of relationship. Population is, however, 6.5 million. And it's divided into 295 municipalities, unlike PEI, it's 3, I believe. Yeah. And the big cities there is San Francisco do Sul, Palazzo, Penha, and Florianopolis. The total surface area is 95,793 square kilometers. Coastline is 561 kilometers. And they are leading producers of fish and seafood, and also other agricultural products. And the mollusk they produce is mussels is 21,000 tons, and oysters is about 2,500, and something like scallops about 5.6 tons. 5.6 tons. The recorded sales for mollusk is 45 million reais, which is approximately $22 million Canadian dollars. The internal gross product estimated at about 77 billion Canadian dollars. So, mussels, they actually started commercial operation in 1990, which was, I think, a couple of years after PEI. PEI was late 80s. It's primarily, even still, a cottage industry. And we'll explain how it is a cottage industry. The objective was basically to provide livelihood to small farmers and natives. And today, there are about more than 600 small aquaculturists who are farming in Santa Catarina along 12 cities along the coast. They have leadership in production because, you know, the natural factors are really optimal. And of course, the geographical factors, it's very near the equator. A large part of the mussels are actually sold on the beach to the tourists. So, very little processing is done for quite a sizable amount of mussels which are sold to the tourists, and most of the processing is done manually for what is actually sold on the beach. They do have recorded sales of 31.33 million reais, which works out to about 14.24 million. But we suspect there would be another $5 to $6 million which is not recorded. There are few processing facilities, and that's part of the changing environment in Santa Catarina. So, here is another beautiful platter of mussels. Primarily, there was a lot of support from the government in terms of making it a sustainable program. And I will probably not, bore you with all these details, but there are certain very prominent institutes that play a very important role in the industry in Santa Catarina. And one of them is IPAGRI, and you will find we keep on mentioning about IPAGRI across the presentation, and the other one is FATMA, plus the universities are also playing important role in research and development and innovation. So, just to understand what happens there, mussel production occurs in aquaculture farms, and the system that is used is called the floating rope system. There is very little mechanization, and it's highly labor intensive. And this is from the past to now, but things are changing, and that's what we're going to talk about in the next forthcoming slides. The federal government basically grants free rights of about a hectare. When we say hectare, it's about 2.47 surface acres, about 2.5 acres. So this is allotted to individual farmers. Now, in a farmer's family, there could be 4 people, 3 people, 5 people, 5 members. So all 5 members could be allocated 1 hectare or 2.5 acres. So you have small operations ranging from 2.5 acres to about 10 to 12 acres. And every time an allocation is counted as 1 aquaculturist. So if you have 600 plus, that means they have so many hectares, which are allocated by the government. This is given free, along with licenses to operate. Plus, they also have the environmental assessment reports. So they understand and they have been given guidance as to what they need to do in order to produce muscles. Of course, they are keeping on opening new spots. When I say new spot, again I mean an hectare of or 2.5 acres. Mussel seed is collected directly from the ocean, as it's done here, and these seed, when they are fixed to the rope, they really grow fast. So they take about 6 to 11 months to become full size. That's the beauty of the environment and geographical reasons. So a couple of more pictures on mussel harvesting. You can see the boat they're using, and you can see the buoys, and we'll be talking more about those. That's a bunch of mussels being harvested. It looks like a banana branch. Penca. So what we talked about was, what was happening in the past, but things are changing. And of late, a number of commercial professional companies are entering the mussel industry in Santa Catarina. These companies are aggressively seeking funds from the government, and they want to actually grow their operations, make it more commercial, do processing so that they can actually sell these mussels to other states. In Brazil, they call states, not provinces, and to other countries. That's the aim, to grow and to be more commercial. So that's the kind of transition that's happening. And these ventures tend to target market, as I said, outside states. The biggest operator is Liargini Cavallo Marino, which received about 2.8 million Canadian dollars from the government to invest in facilities. And they currently have about 50 hectares, so 50 into 2.5 acres. And they're expected to get another 150 hectares for farming. But besides farming, they have their own processing unit where they also have started buying mussels now from the local farmers. So you can see that more and more of the mussels that are being harvested are being processed. So these companies are vertically integrated because they do the farming, they also do the processing, and they also do the marketing. And over a period of time now, they have started taking about 80% of the mussels that are being produced to processing stage. Also, the mussel production is growing, and in 2012, the mussel production was 21,000 tons, which I mentioned in the first slide. But what's interesting is it increased by 47% over the previous year. This is one of the facilities where processing is done, but this is not the big company. It's more a medium-sized company that is doing the processing in that unit. You can see that logo here. That's basically a certified place where mussel processing can be done. So it's certified by the government. There is plenty of government support. They have number of farms, number of plans, and basically the objective is to offer farming spots. As I mentioned, 1 hectare is 2.5 acres, 2.47 acres. Implementing the environmental license because they want to produce hygienic mussels. Research and development so that they can improve the quality of mussels and they can also start selling it to other states, and of course modernization of the existing infrastructure. Another program is called Good Fishing, which is aimed to increase production, consumption, and sale of seafood. Also, the municipal secretaries have responsibility of promoting mussels like other products, and one of them that is in the municipality of Penha, they have something which is known as a National Fair of Mussels, which takes place, I think, sometime in February, and they have been doing it for the last 19 years to promote mussels, to promote the consumption of mussels, and like, of course, the way PEI has done it. So, IPAGRI, as I mentioned to you, is one of the institutes that's really supporting the mussel production and processing, and this is one of their laboratories. Is there any question so far? No? Yeah. Yeah, sure.
You mentioned 11 months for the growing acid.
Yes.
You mentioned using rope as the seed collector.
Yes.
And I jumped to the conclusion that we don't have what we do here is we thin out the mussel seed and relay the mussels on land into socks and hang them out again.
Right.
That's not in my, just grow directly on the rope till now.
Right. That's we cannot say it's not there at all, but that's the major way it's done.
Actually, the ropes that are used to collect the seeds when they float 30 centimeters below the surface, those are pulled ropes that we call coletores. From those ropes, they put on those in another rope that are protected by a cottonwood sock. Yeah, so it tends to deintegrate it. Now, and I know that we will get into that in a moment, they are experimenting another system that was developed by that medium-sized company, where they get the seeds and they just put the seeds over ropes that are arranged like a snail, and to have yeah.
So, IPAGRI plays a big role, and so do the various universities, and there is something called as Centro Experimenti di Mariculture, that is CEMAR, which has its own mussel seed producing laboratory. This is done on an experimental basis because the seed that is available in the ocean is not enough in Brazil. So they are looking at cultivating them in laboratories. And of course, they also trying to help the farmers to use better equipment. So they imported a boat from Spain to basically see how it can help in increasing productivity, and also they would want to manufacture similar things in Brazil, similar boats in Brazil. Here again, there is some testing which is being done. I think this is for the red tide, and making sure, constantly observing so that the quality of mussels is good. More government programs here, and what I want to actually bring to your notice is the budget that they have is 4.1 billion reais, which works to about 1.7 billion Canadian dollars. This is all approximate at the rate at that time. It's purely divided by 2.2 to to give you Canadian dollars. And this money is available for financing. So small farmers, medium farmers, large processors can take financing from the government from this kitty, which is available to them. Now, it looks good, but there are certain issues because some of these programs are not really adapted to the mussel industry. They are more adapted to agriculture, aquaculture as generally. So there are issues in getting the financing, but the financing is available. However, there is a small rider to that. If you want the financing, then 60% of the equipment should be made in Brazil. So out of the machinery bought, 40% can be imported, but 60% has to be domestic. Only then can you get financing for those equipment or machinery.
Question on that. Can you turn imported product into a national product by assembling it in Brazil?
No, you would have to import 40% and get 60% made in Brazil and then assemble the whole thing.
You have to have 60% national content. On the other hand, there is a solution for that. If you use the jurisdiction of Paraguay in a system called maquiladora, you can bring international parts and assemble that. That will be a Paraguayan machine, and then you can import to Brazil. More or less like you can do in Mexico with the maquiladoras. Yeah.
Or Chile.
Or yeah.
Or Chile.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any other questions so far?
That was a big learning for us out of this research. I know we had talked about this program at our meeting back in February, and so finding out the terms of that program and how it's being administered is key to deciding next steps.
Yeah. And there are three kinds of certification that is available for the farmers. So the first one here is at the municipal level, the state level, and the country level. So if you're looking at exporting it, you have to have the certificate at the country level. This is for selling your product within the state, and the one on top is to sell your product to other states. The idea is to make the product as hygienic as possible. So the officials gradually nudge them into the first certification, the farmers, and once they get used to the quality controls there, then they move them up the ladder, up the chain. Yeah, sure.
For a small farmer, and we have a small producer, and when we talk about mussel production in Brazil, it's a completely different scenario than what we have here. It's difficult to cope with bureaucracy and with the government, even because the Brazilian bureaucracy is something huge. So the cities are trying to make the small producers to get used it, getting the city licensing, then they will go to the federal license. The federal license is costly, not because you have to pay to get it, but you have to pay to adapt a production system that's completely informal into a company, make it formal. You have to pay taxes, you have to have your charter registered at Junta Comercial, the commercial registration office, you have to have your employee registered and everything. So that's why they are bringing from the small certification to the bigger certification. On the other hand, they are independent. You can get a city certification without getting a federal certification, or you can go straight, and that's what most of the big companies do, straight to the federal certification without passing through the cities. Okay?
So we looked at the industry in the small scale producers and the medium and the large scale producers, which is more commercial. The small scale producers produce obviously on a small scale in cultivators, and they are basically fishermen who are also doing mussel farming to supplement their income. And they basically descendants of people who came from Azores 150 years ago. So they have their own way of doing things, they have their own culture. And so the production processes, are more artisan and more cottage industry as far as the small producers are concerned. And as I mentioned to you, they get about a hectare, which is given a complimentary, which is 2.47 acres or 10,000 square meters surface area. And if you want multiple spots, if you have multiple members in the family, then each one of them can get a spot. And so the husband will get one spot, the wife will get the other spot, and in case they don't get along in the future, the wife keeps her spot and the husband, so they can always separate, and even the children can have their own spots when they're of a certain age. And so when they go their own way, they keep that spot with them. Sorry. Now, as far as the small producers go, they don't have too much of formal education, and so they are, limited in the way they do business. They just want to produce and sell to either the visitors on the beach or to now the processing units that are coming up. So here's another beautiful picture from there of maturing mussels, and you can see them on the rope. Now, these farmers, small farmers, they are encouraged by IPAGRI to form into cooperatives. Those are the formal cooperatives. So they get into the formal cooperatives so that they can get the allocation of the spots given by the government. But they don't prefer to work in that formal cooperation. So they make their own association for everything else, where like-minded farmers get together and they have their own informal association where they work in that group. So the formal associations are basically defunct. And however, the government encourages cooperatives because there's less tax and stuff like that, but also with the cooperative, the farmers can do better in terms of productivity, and also get them to record sales. So when they become an establishment, they need to record the sale. But if you're just a farmer, you can just sell your products on the beach, and it's not even recorded. Here's another picture of the farmers enjoying the beautiful scenery in a small, nice boat with a portable winch. So with the advent of these industries, it has also, this opportunity has also attracted professionals, those who don't want the city life, they want a more quieter life, they want to enjoy this beautiful place. So you're getting professionals coming into this business, you're getting industry coming into it, doing more of commercial work. And of course, as I mentioned to you, one of these large companies, they not only got a good financing from the government, but they are planning to invest another 12 million Canadian dollars in increasing and improving the infrastructure, machinery, equipment. Sorry. And the goal, this is interesting, is to increase muscle production by 20 times, not 20%. And so they're looking at about 16 million in annual revenues of Canadian dollars. And they're also looking at exporting, and they're also looking at partners who can bring technology, expertise, and investment. But they're more at expertise and technology, and the focus is less on investment. So as I mentioned, they also have a credit line, which is 2.8 million Canadian dollars for machinery and equipment. Plus, they're investing their own money. So they are in a position to not only buy domestic equipment and machinery, but also import. And finally, they sell the products to the market. So they're vertically integrated, right from farming to market. So that's a picture of one of the packages which is available in retail. Any questions so far? Are you getting a good feel about the market in Santa Catarina and the mussel industry there?
It sounds like it's not just an equipment opportunity, it's a service opportunity.
Yes, both.
Because, and it's not just things about production, it's also about packaging and branding.
Yes. Well, that's what we're going to come to at the end. But you're absolutely right. So there are a few companies which are supplying equipment and machinery, and we've listed them down. Yes?
Just going backwards a little bit. The species is not like ours, it's not a Mitchellus, it's
No.
Pan.
Yes.
And it's a different color, it appears brownish,
No, it's the female is reddish, and the male is white.
but the shell.
Yeah, shell is, yes,
Yeah.
yeah, brownish.
From brownish to,
Dark brownish.
Yes.
is that native of Brazil or South America or?
Yeah. Perna is the species we have there in the south of Brazil. According to certain researchers, this species exists in Brazil after the first boats left Africa to go to Brazil with the first African Brazilians. Why is that? In Brazil, we have some hills that were built by the native Brazilians that were eating shellfish, and there are very little mussel shells in those hills. But it is a native species. The important thing is that we may not import Mytilus seeds to Brazil. It's not allowed. Any species of marine animal may not be imported to Brazil.
I guess the nature of the question too would be, say, in your case, would you have, say, not a unique, but a fairly rare market or product in the marketplace? For instance, Chilean mussel, is it the same?
No, it's different.
No, it's different.
And that's the point.
Yeah,
there.
it's different.
You may have a very valuable product.
Exactly.
As a new species in your introduction.
Yeah, we
Right.
have the green lippet from New Zealand, the Patagonian mussel in Chile, Mytilus australis. We have the blue mussel here, and we don't have a name for the mussel in Santa Catarina.
No brand.
No brand. Yeah, my wife said due to the colors, that could be rainbow mussels or something like that.
I suspect the taste is sweet.
It is. But I have to tell you, yesterday I had such a wonderful mussel here in Prince Edward Island that I tend to say that your mussel is much better. Yeah.
Maybe you could speak a little bit to some of the findings in terms of the quality standards that they're working on addressing and some of
Yeah,
the
we are
environmental-
going.
Yeah, we are going there.
So we also did a market scan on the vendors and the service providers and what are the equipment and machinery that they are providing. and we were able to identify some companies that are selling, not necessarily sold. So, for example, the first company, Marine Equipment, and Aristide spoke to the owner, and he said he has not sold any machinery for the mussel industry in Santa Catarina. But there are other companies that are manufacturing some domestic machinery and equipment, and that's the list. There's more information available in the report. So if you're looking for more information, or you could ask us, we can give you more information. So just a few photographs of imported machinery available from Marine Equipment. As we said, none of them is sold. So when I put sold on the slide, he told me they're not sold, they are only for sale. Some costs on the raw material available. So the buoys are actually reused plastic packages. So they are actually, they initially had chemicals in it. So when the chemicals are poured out, these are used as buoys, right? And they're sold at 6 reais, which is about $2.5 each. And cables, 4 reais, collectors, 4 reais, again about $2 each a meter. And we also got some information on the rafts and the boats. So 33,000 for the raft with meter, which is about 48 square meters, and $2,000 for the small boats, which is about 5 meters. So the rafts are the boats are basically used for going and getting the mussels, and then they get them onto the raft. That's how they operate there. So here is the picture of the buoys that they are using. As you can see, they are empty packages of chemical containers. So there are 3 different types of production methods there. The first one is the rack and table system, which the initial production started with, but now they are fading out. The current system is the long line system, and the continuous production long line system is what they would like to go into in the future. So that's the aspirational bit. There is one, I think, continuous one place. So there's one system, and that's being given out to different farmers, but it's only on an experimental basis at this point of time. So here's a picture of the table and the long line system. Yes. So whenever you see there's development or there's new equipment, it's likely that Ipagre is involved in that. So this is actually eyewitness process. You would like to expand on this process? Yeah.
How it happens there in Santa Catarina. Again, when we speak about processing and when we speak about mussel production, we have to remember that we are into a very beginning stage. So they take the pencas and they get the pencas. Pencas are the ropes with the mussels attached to it. And penca is exactly the same word we use in Brazilian Portuguese to designate the banana bunch. So we take the pencas, and the pencas are removed either with a wooden stick or stepping on the rope with the mussels. The mussels are taken out, they are cleaned into a processing facility, and then they are taken to sorting, of course, to separate the mussel from another mussel, and they are taken to get steamed, to open. Basically, that's the same thing that happens here, I believe. The difference that it's such a labor-intensive work there in Santa Catarina that the meat is still taken out of the shell manually, and mostly by women working into those facilities. To have such an intensive labor industry may sound like a problem if you intend to mechanize an industry in terms of social impact of such movement. But on the other hand, you would be creating into the community opportunities to these women and to these other people that are working into such a difficult job. And then and that's a great opportunities for Prince Edward Island companies. The mussels are packaged and frozen to be sold all around Brazil. So again, it's a very simple procedure, but the whole procedure is certified in order to receive the federal inspection certificate. Okay.
Any questions on that? So we've been able to identify certain challenges in the industry. One is, of course, a lack of common marketing and branding strategy, lack of bacteriological control in production spots, inexistence of laboratory to produce seeds. As we said, seed is something which is limited, and therefore they need to produce the seed in laboratories, culture seeds. Industry leaders feel that the industry is growing slowly because it's difficult to access the finance which is available from the government, and also certain public policies are very broad-based, and they club agriculture, aquaculture, mussel production, everything together, and so certain policies are not fine-tuned to the mussel industry. And the investment from the the private companies is limited. You're just finding some of the companies coming in, but it's still limited. And as I mentioned, shortage of seeds. This is the price for illegal seeds which are sold there at 7 reais, which is about $3 for 20 kilos. 20 kilos, when I say 20 kilos, it means about 40 pounds, 45 pounds. So what can be improved? Well, almost everything. Mechanization of crop processing, seed production in the laboratories, imposing mandatory sanction inspection for all producers, because there are certain producers who still don't have the CIF certification, and that's where the industry people believe that the government does not impose their will on the local farmers, because they may lose votes at the end of the day. So that's something that even though it's happening because they're trying to convince them, they're not making it a mandatory thing. So the convincing process usually takes much longer than when you make it mandatory. And so more seed and increased level of productivity, development of more innovative mussel products. That means after they're processed, different products so that they can be sold in different parts, to different customers. Development, as I said, more innovative products, promotion of mussel locally and internationally, and brand building. Also, there was a mention about making the mussel process organic and free trade. That is a good, because that could be possibly one of their USPs, as compared to the other mussels available. And since they actually need to implement a process, you could start from the ground up and create an organic or free trade. Just a few snapshots to show you that the oyster industry there is much more developed, and there are some companies that do both. So Cavallo Marino is, Liageni is doing the same. They're doing for oysters as well as mussels. But the mussel process is more not as advanced as the oyster. So a very quick section on entry option to Brazil. I'm sure you do know, but we wanted to highlight certain things that can help if you're looking at Brazil very seriously. So you could incorporate a company there. There are two kinds of company. One is the Limited A, and the other one is the SA. In the limited company, the first one, your assets are not protected like in the limited company in Canada, right? So, so if you think it's the same thing, it's not. But in the second one, your assets could be protected as a partner or as a big investor. And if you want to do any transaction in Brazil, then you have to be registered with the Brazilian Central Bank. So that's one of the things that need to be done initially before you start any transactions. The other option, acquire capital stock, and wherever we put the asterisks, we recommend that. This can help you to get into the market quickly, and but it's important to keep the liabilities in mind when you're acquiring the stock, because you would also acquire that much of the liability of the company. The other thing is joint venture, which is also something that we recommend in case you want to get into the mussel market in Brazil. Capital stock, joint venture is what we recommend, not so much exporting. And of course, there's licensing. But the first two are, I would say, the best ways to get into Brazil. Because if you are involved in that business, then you can protect your license if you have any. Expertise that you're taking to Brazil, you can protect it if you are one of the owners of the company. And if you actually can take the expertise and do manufacturing in another country, in Brazil, the chances are that you can build a brand there and you will be able to sell competitively in the market with good quality and capture the market. And right now, if you get into the mussel market, you're actually getting at the ground level when the industry is actually transforming and becoming commercialized from the artisan farming stage to the medium and large company processing stage. So we actually did a lot of research on the strengths of PEI, but I'm not going to spend much time here because all of you in this room know about it. But we were able to identify, Anne was able to identify 7 prominent categories of suppliers, and we've listed them here. So engineering design expertise, equipment, machinery, manufacturing, and custom fabrication expertise, boat building, commercial diving, and 2 prominent service categories. One is the business management and development, and the second is environmental stewardship management, food safety and research. So we just divided into 2, but basically these are the expertise, and it's really broad. And in case you want to discuss more about it, we're very happy to share the report with you. And we said, we're going to talk about Brazil, but if we give you a snapshot, probably it's going to be the best way to comprehend the difference between the two industries. So, as you were mentioning, there's a difference in the species, that is Perna perna in Brazil. And Prince Edward Island started, the inception of the industry was late 80s, Santa Catarina just maybe a couple of years later. That's when they started. Industry structure in PEI is medium to large commercial operations, whereas in Santa Catarina it's mostly small farmers, but as I mentioned, that's changing, right? Maybe the small farmers will continue to be there, but the driving force is going to be the commercialized medium and large companies. Stages of the industry, it's developed here and still cottage industry and moving ahead. Vertical integration is high here, pretty low there. Farming methods, long line system in Brazil. Mechanization, mid-range to advanced in PEI, and very early stages in Santa Catarina. Time required for growth, now we've just taken the 18 to 24 month standard, but I believe there are areas where you could even get in 14 months, 12 to 14 months. Yeah. As you can see in Santa Catarina, it's 6 to 11 months, so pretty fast. Seed availability, very limited in Santa Catarina, so that's one of their issues, the concerns, and if we do have a solution for that, then I'm sure they'll be very happy to take that service. Leaseholds in PEI, approximately 110 and over 600 in Santa Catarina, so you can see they're small, very small farms. Farming surface area, 11,233 surface acres in PEI and 1,298 acres in Santa Catarina. Production, 50 million pounds in PEI and 32 million pounds in Santa Catarina.
Major one difference as well is we have ice. I expect you don't.
No, we don't.
Yes. So, yes, I know the conditions here are very difficult, and comparatively in Santa Catarina, the conditions are really optimal.
I think that's why we have an 18 to 24 month
Yes,
growth period.
yes,
Mussels go dormant in the wintertime.
yes, yes, that's true.
Stephen Stewart could probably talk quite personally about how difficult it is to harvest in the ice. He's expert at it.
I mentioned that here in Canada, we have ice, and the winters is tough, and we have to learn how to live during the winter here. And one of the producers was looking at me, and he said, "Oh, I changed my bureaucracy for all the ice they have." So we have our problems there. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so some more comparison. Gross value to economy is 30 million in Prince Edward Island, whereas 20 million in Santa Catarina. The processing standards are very high here as compared to Santa Catarina, and you can see the productivity is 1,500 jobs in Prince Edward Island and 2,500 jobs, because a lot of stuff is done manually, including taking the mussels out of the shell, washing them, and every single step there's a lot of manual labor. And because these are entrepreneurs, they're small farmers, so they tend to try to save money and do it, take help of the family members and maybe some friends and neighbors and do the processing. Salary wages 11 million in PEI, and in Santa Catarina it's mostly self-employed. Capital intensive medium to high in PEI, low in Santa Catarina. Sustainability, strong measures in PEI, whereas they're still struggling to put measures in place. But there is a constant endeavor to keep on putting these systems in place, and it's going to happen. It's taking time. Associations well organized here. There, the formal associations are defunct, whereas the informal are active. And the suppliers, basically combination of domestic and import, whereas there is more of adaptation of agricultural equipment. That's what they're trying to use, and now they're looking at some imports with the big company coming in. Supported by PEI strong institutional expertise. There it's supported by EPAGRI and some of the universities there. And markets in PEI is local, primarily local, with most of the produce going into the state of Santa Catarina, because most of it is not really well processed and packaged. So that's an opportunity there to process it, package it, and there are some of these companies who are not only looking at selling it across Brazil, but also exporting it. What we have done is we have taken each of the strength categories in PEI, and we have tried to match it to the opportunities in Santa Catarina. And so for the engineering and design expertise, there is opportunity in turnkey projects for large companies and even medium-sized companies. Looking for partners that could help build product standards, muscle production destined for export markets. Opportunities may exist for development and design of large-scale muscle farms and systems and equipment within these farms and processors. Obviously, there needs to be certain consideration on the barriers. Presently, there's only one large, and you can count the medium-sized companies on your fingers. So it's just about getting started in terms of commercialization. But they are seriously considering, better technology, more productivity, and looking at, foreign partnership. So, as mentioned earlier, we recommend forming an alliance and exploring joint venture opportunities with these companies. Which is across, Then the equipment, machinery, manufacturing, and custom fabrication, mostly the similar opportunities available. And again, if you really want to go and sell them equipment or machinery, then you need to have some kind of presence in Santa Catarina, which will, help you to build a brand which will be strong in the industry. Not only that, you will also be very competitive, and you'll be able to give good products at a reasonably good price. Because if you try to import it, whatever route you take, you're going to spend more money, more tax, and sometimes the rules may change. So, there will be always some kind of hooplas you'll be jumping through. In the consideration here, there are two clear submarkets. One is the mass market, where there is money available in terms of financing for the small and medium-sized operations, but they're really not spending the money today. But they can spend the money only if 60% of the product is manufactured in the country. And of course, there are the larger companies and consortiums who may not take the financing from the government. And so there would be opportunities for maybe a couple of turnkey projects and maybe a couple of large machineries going into these places. But and of course, as they grow in number, there would be more opportunities. Again, the same market entry that we recommend. For bold building expertise, we feel that at this point, there is not much opportunity which is available in the Santa Catarina market. Also, the same for commercial diving expertise. We feel at this point, there may not be great opportunities. For two reasons. One is there is already a lot of diving expertise that is there in Brazil. So the other thing is that there are a lot of certifications and training that is required, which is very different from PEI. So what would be considered expertise here may not be considered expertise in Santa Catarina. For product packaging, yes, there is definitely a need, especially for those companies who want to start exporting not only out of the country but into different states. There's a copy with, you can see the seal there, which is the Brazilian seal, which means this can be exported. Business management and development opportunities. Yes, again, they are there, but market is still, young, and if you get in at this point, and there are a couple of industries that are interested, and they have mentioned to us if any of the PEI industries are interested in talking to us, we would be very happy to talk to them. After this session, if you'd like information on that, more information, or if you would want the contact information, or if you want us to give you an introduction to these companies, we'd be very happy to do so. And is similarly for food safety and research, that's where there is a chance to even talk to the government, because the government is really interested in improving the food safety and doing mass research for their industry so that they can give this information to their producers and improve production, because that's really one of the important points in their agenda. So moving forward, once you have interest in specific industry, you can create specific evaluation, talk to people, we can help you to talk to them, connect with them, and well, like any other, maybe create a trade mission if required next year to go and visit the market, talk to interested people, and that is the end of my quick presentation. So any questions? Yes, please.
I get a feel for the size of the future market. You mentioned they've got roughly 1,200 acres, about a tenth the size of the PEI marketplace right now. That 500 or so miles of shoreline, how much of that is conducive to like mussel growing? I mean, where could the market grow to? Is that part of the strategy or the market study? Like, could they be the equivalent size of the PEI mussel industry in 10 years if we get all these factors, or could they be 10 times the size? What's the nature of the coast? Is it lots of bays and
Yeah.
places where you can actually grow mussel, or is it?
Mostly of the production is either on the continent in front of the island of Santa Catarina, so it's the capital island of Santa Catarina, the name of the island is Santa Catarina, like the name of the state, or in the island. The island with the continent forms something like two V's together, and that's the state of Santa Catarina. Over this state, there's the state of Paraná that do not have much bays, and the biggest bay is polluted, and below that is Rio de Janeiro, Rio Grande do Sul. But we have São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro that are other states farther north. And if you go and look to the size of the south of Brazil comparing to the size of Brazil, you see that the coast of the south of Brazil and the coast of Santa Catarina is really a small portion of that. It has potential to grow even between these two V's. You see, a lot. If you see, I saw the satellite images in the map, and there are a lot of spots that are just starting to be mapped. And below that and over that, in the whole coast of Santa Catarina, you find a lot of coasts and estuaries where you can have mussel produced there with the same, basically the same climate. Basically the same climate. It can get a little. The problem is the seed. The problem is the seed, or the way the seed is collected nowadays. Some of the researchers pointed to me that the whole technology or knowledge that has been used in Brazil is a knowledge that was adapted for an European counterpart. And now it's time to develop their own technology or knowledge in terms of acquiring or getting these seeds. That can be directly from the seed, that can be directly from rock outcrops. You know, it's not allowed to get from the rocks, but some research will prove or may prove that on contrary.
So if they were to figure out the seed, is there an estimate on what size they should be?
I can dig that information. I don't have it right now. Yeah, I can get this information for you.
How big, because you gotta grow them before you can process them.
Exactly, yeah.
So I'm just trying to get a
Yeah.
sense for how much growth potential is there. You know, if someone really, I mean, there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, a lot of work.
Stages,
Yeah.
and all the marketing aspects and everything, but what's the
Mhm.
growth? Is it PEI?
Mhm.
Also, I guess, what kind of opportunity elsewhere?
In Santa Catarina.
How big could it be?
One important thing to mention, the small farmers are close to the coast, really close, in a distance that can be 15 meters, 20 meters, 50, 100 meters maybe. But and those producers will receive from the federal government the spots already licensed, already granted with all the requirements they need. But some people like Luis Valle, the president for Liardini, is looking for spots that are far into the ocean. And those spots will be basically unlimited if you consider the size of the base there. These spots that Sheriff just mentioned that has more than 10 times the spots that are being granted will be farther north and will allow the mechanization into a long line continuing system. So for investments, I wouldn't say investments on acquiring spots on the sea, because that's something important to mention. A foreign company will not be allowed to acquire spots in the sea according to Brazilian law, but to provide services the way some companies are doing in Chile. Robinson Crusoe, for instance, they are providing services to the producers in Chile. I believe that a lot of opportunity can be created in terms of diversification, opening of markets. And in the size of market, if we go to the Brazilian market, okay, we have 200 million people living in Brazil, and we may think, okay, but 200 million people that do eat seafood. Believe it or not, it's not a cultural thing to eat seafood in Brazil. It is a cultural thing to eat seafood in the south of Brazil, but not in Brazil. So we have this whole market to develop. Would be basically to export inside your own country, and then from your country get to other countries in South America, and then we are just, you know, close to Africa to export, to have some relations with Africa and to other places to export.
Just to
add to that, this big company is looking at producing 20 times the muscles, is also an indicator of the kind of potential they are looking at, because they are pretty much very closely related to the political system. So they do get a lot of information in advance on what are the sites that are going to come up for allocation.
I understand you sell, or the market is mainly for, it's large, for a shot muscle. Whereas here, well, virtually all is sold with the shell. With the shell, yeah. In the fresh market. Is that not, say, in my opinion, would be the lower hanging fruit where you can sell the shell and all in a fresher state? And the consumer would prefer, I assume again, a fresher product. And your 160 million people you're going to market to, if you market them a shot muscle, you're already upscaling an unnecessary level where you could unload
To fresh.
to the fresh market.
Yeah.
Like we did, I don't know.
I'm going to give you an example. We say in Brazil that for you to sell something, I was attending the first presentations, and a lady asked if in Europe people were concerned about price or quality. In Brazil, we joke around that people are concerned about what appears in the soap opera. And they did that. They did exactly that with oysters. Oysters were not consumed in Brazil. Were not consumed in Brazil. It was not a question of culture. Nobody would care far beside the south of Brazil. Nobody would care to eat oysters from São Paulo to the north. So what they did in Santa Catarina, someone that I met at Epagri, they promoted a character that would be producing, a very handsome guy, producing in a very romantic way oysters in Santa Catarina. And a very sophisticated couple was in the news, was in the soap opera, consuming oysters in a very sophisticated situation. Just to tell you that although we have that cultural inexistence in terms of consumption of seafood, that's something that can be changed really fast. And that's one of the characteristics of the Brazilian market and consumption. We are putting into the consumption market millions of people basically every year, and they will learn what's good, and they want what is good. And of course, fresh mussels are much better than mussels that are the shell and package. Yeah, but there is a problem. When I was speaking with the researchers at Epagri, they mentioned that the way we sell mussels here in Prince Edward Island, inside those packages with the mussel basically alive, would have to be adapted to Brazil, since the metabolic rate of the mussel in tropical waters is much higher. So, and I asked, what should we do? What we should do? They would be able to do that if they could put the mussels into an artificial hibernation. So they would give a frozen shock, and they will take the mussels off this shock, and they will be, ready to be sold. I don't know if that's a technical way of describing that, but that's the way they said that would need to happen.